Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Maverick here, and it is time for episode 16 of Dr. Stone. So, as you might be able to tell, I am super excited for this episode. I've been saying for a long time that this series is only going to get better and better after we pass a certain point, and this is exactly the tipping point, right? Those of you who also watch the manga, read the manga, probably know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the part where, I really feel that the series really starts to take off, both literally and figuratively, actually. But for those of you who are anime only, well, I'm sure that a lot of you might have guessed a little bit as to, what is actually going on, especially with the cliffhanger with the last episode, where it's revealed that the village is called Ishigami Village, who, Senku, his name is also Ishigami, right? So there is some relationship between these two, right? So, without further ado, let's just get into the episode and watch what this story actually is. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Ishigami Village! A long time. Oh, I thought they were going to go exactly into the opening. The 100 Tales. Okay, that's a good place to put the opening. But I want to go directly into the story. I skip the opening usually anyway, so I'll see you guys in a second. A Tale for the Ages. Childhood Senku. Oh, yeah, okay. I thought they were actually gonna have Ruri narrate the whole story. But this makes a much better viewing experience. Using the light. Mm. 体重。Hmm. Of course, for science. Hey, can anyone guess what that's for? I'm surprised it doesn't short circuit in the water though. Honestly, his father's voice is a little bit different from what I was originally anticipating. Hey. Like I said, literally taking off. Eh. Ah. I wonder how far we're gonna get in this episode. That should remind you guys of anyone. I wonder how many people who are watching along with me for this series are anime only. It's seriously hard for me to refrain from spoiling anything. Oh, they actually okay. Well, that would make sense, right? Of course they would have her actually singing. I First concert in space. This part is actually anime only, like giving her an extended round of her singing and all those other scenes. See, he was actually doing investigation on this. Ah. And you know, I completely forgot about the fact that you know, they would need to actually animate and show us her singing. In the manga form, you can only, you know, read about it. Here you can actually hear her sing, right? Okay. I think I about know where they're going to end this. Also on a sort of cliffhanger. Back on Earth. Ooh. Nope. Nobody. The whole world has been petrified. Hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this ending part makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? Ah! Oh man. I'm so happy right now. Alright, but I'll see you guys after the ending. And there we go. We are finally up to this point. So, with this episode, I can finally also fully explain how I feel about, the story up to now, right? So the way that I look at it, I believe that from this episode on, we entered truly the second phase of the series as a whole. The way that I look at it is the first phase I would consider from the beginning of the anime, of the manga, all the way up to the separation of Senku from Tsukasa and Taiju and Yuzuhara, where they went on their separate paths, each establishing their own kingdoms, empires, however you want to call it, doing their own philosophy and whatnot. And then, the phase where Senku discovers this village and then befriends some of the people, starts befriending the people in there, and the tournament arc, and also Kohaku and Chrome and all that, gaining these companions, I would actually consider the 1.5 phase, right? So not really into the second phase yet, but sort of like in the intermediary here. And now with this episode on, that's what I truly feel is the start of the second phase. Now Senku truly knows what he's dealing with, and then once we get this, we'll also quickly enter into the next arc, which is where, okay, I'm not going to spoil anything, but we enter the next arc, right? Which is also going to accumulate in one epic showdown. And I do believe that with the way things are going, the end of this season of Dr. Stone will probably end with what I consider the second phase, right? To reach a conclusion there. At least I hope so. Although it might be cutting it a little bit close considering how many episodes are in a season. But yeah. And really, this part, starting from here when they really started to go through the backstory of Ishigami Village and starting to, interconnect all these different stories together, this is the part where I really fell in love with this manga, with this work, right? And it's when I really started to think, okay, this mangaka actually is quite brilliant in the way that he's writing his story, right? You can see that he's really purposely planning out a lot of these topics beforehand, and then sprinkling some hints here and there, and then still making sure that they can all be connected together at the very end, right? It's I don't know, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I feel like, especially now, up to now, where I still read up to the latest chapters and whatnot, I feel like he is a person who buries a lot of clues or whatnot in previous, does a lot of foreshadowing, let's just say, or at the very least, he weaves these stories together in a way that they are consistent with each other, and it still gives you a sense of, so this was from that part, right? And I don't know, it just really speaks to me on a personal level in terms of what I really want and what I really enjoy from works of anime or of manga. So, and really, I will fully admit that it never crossed my mind that this is the way how the story was going to go. This is why the village was there. I mean, I had some inkling of feeling that maybe they do have some knowledge of people past. Maybe they know of these kinds of advanced civilizations, but I absolutely didn't know that they were related with Senku in some sort of way, right? So, yeah. Anyways. And just to quickly give a brief overview of these different phases. And by the way, the third phase, which we are currently in the manga, is really my favorite phase of all of these. And so that's why I keep on saying that this is a series that's just getting better and better and better and better. And so even if you don't entirely appreciate the initial parts and whatnot, it's going to start accelerating forward. So yeah. And in this episode, we do see the relationship between Senku and his father, as well as what happened in the past, right? And so, again, I actually really like this dynamic between Senku and his father as well. You can tell they care for each other, but it's not in a very traditional father-son kind of way, right? But they have mutual respect for each other. I want to remind you guys, recall earlier that when we saw a flashback of Senku in his youth, right? When he really started to develop his affinity towards the sciences and whatnot. Do recall that his father actually sold his car, he pawned off his car in order to get enough money to buy all the science materials and supplies for Senku, and so that he could pursue his path down the road of science, right? And so in turn, Senku also is really grateful for his father, and fully supports his father into becoming an astronaut as well. Now, how effective that was, don't really know, but at least we know that his heart is there, right? And so yeah, and basically it's actually quite a touching story there in a sense, especially later on with some of his father's actions as well, which I'm not going to spoil. So let's also talk a little bit about the other characters that we meet on the space station, right? Because all 6 of them are actually kind of crucial, and there are hidden plot lines or hidden references here that may or may not be important, but once you realize it, it actually gives you a kind of, oh, so this is how it's related with this other part, right? I feel like, reading the manga up to now, the mangaka really likes to leave traces of this in earlier episodes and earlier chapters and whatnot, and then reference them back later, and so you can just feel giddy that, hey, this is something that I know it's happened before and it's actually relevant now. So these 6 are crucial, and actually, even with reading the manga, I believe there are still some hidden plot lines that the mangaka put here in regards to these 6 that hasn't even been fully shown yet, right? So do take note of that. Lillian, I want to specifically mention a little bit because, like I mentioned within the episode, I actually completely forgot that she. I mean, I still remember that she's a diva, right? She's a great singer. She's apparently one of the best, or the most well-known, the most renowned singer of that time, of that age. And her performances actually do, her singing actually does constitute an important plot point in the future as well. But I completely forgot that since this is an animation, they can totally allow her to sing and show off her chops, right? Now, what's funny here is that they actually got another actual singer to sing this part. If you guys listen to the insert song, which is called One Small Step, you can hear that it's definitely a professional singer, right? Which is, I can understand totally why they went with that, but the funny thing to me is because the voice actor for Lillian is actually Lin, who is a voice actor of mixed blood. She's mixed American and Japanese, and so I guess it was kind of a missed opportunity to allow her to sing, although I'm not really sure if she really sings, but still, I guess they really wanted to play up the diva part here, right? So they brought someone who can really belt out these songs. And they actually added more stuff to her scenes as well. I assume perhaps to also pad the time a little bit so that they could end this episode on where they ended here. Such as, the scene during her mini concert where they showed her live broadcast to lots of different characters and in lots of different places. That was not in the manga at all. That was... I remember in the manga it was like one panel and with her concluding her mini concert, and that was basically it. So they actually added some stuff there as well. So yeah, and of course we end on a cliffhanger where literally, the first episode, right? That's how the timelines converge here, right? So these 6 were up in space when episode 1 happened, and the petrification beam hit everyone, right? So yeah, how many of you guys can guess what's actually going to happen next in regards to these 6, right? So obviously at the end of the episode, Senku's father was saying that, there's 7 billion people that needs them, that are waiting on them to save them, right? Now obviously, that's not going to happen. I don't think this is a spoiler, considering that we clearly see that they weren't saved in the end, right? They were petrified and remained petrified for 3,700 years. So they failed to save them, right? So something must have happened. And then we also know that this village was ultimately named Ishigami Village, so is there some sort of correlation there? So for those of you who don't read the manga, you can, get your brain gears going. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out at this point, though. And yeah, and as I was saying, there's a lot of hidden plot lines or hidden references here that will be relevant later on, such as one thing that isn't that hasn't been directly mentioned yet in the current manga chapters is the origin of the petrification beam, right? And even here we can see some little hint that probably the mangaka already has an idea of how this entire thing came to be, and all the big story points, right? Because we can clearly see that Senku was already starting his investigation into this petrification beam, right? And he can clearly say that this is artificial, it's man-made, and we can see that it's not just something that just happens instantly, right? There's people testing it on pigeons, and so that's why there's these pigeons that were being petrified and whatnot. Senku thought it was funny, but before he could do any further research into it, the actual thing happened, right? So this is something that, it's probably a big clue as to what's going to be the actual story, what's going to be the actual backstory in the future, but we just don't know yet. But it is something to keep in mind. And so there we go. This has been kind of a long review where not really much of relevance was said. It's mainly just me continuing to praise this series as a whole, but I've waited a long time, right? I've literally waited for 15 episodes till we could get to this point. And so finally the wait is over and we can really start doing some fun stuff. So yeah, there we go. That is my review for Dr. Stone, episode 16. If you guys would like to further, give your guesses or whatnot, do comment below. As usual, I'll try my best not to spoil anything. And, oh yeah, and also do let me know if you guys would prefer me to keep the opening, let the opening play through, right? Obviously, I will mute it, but apparently some people actually want to time their videos along with me, and by cutting out the opening, I'm adding some unnecessary burdens on them. Now, normally I cut them out because, I don't really have anything to say during the opening. I already have an introduction or recap section, and the opening is literally the same thing every single episode, right? So there's not really much that I can talk about. So let me know if you guys want me to leave it in so that you guys can sync it better, and I don't know, maybe we'll just, you guys can just watch me bob my head along for 90 seconds or something. So yeah, there you go. Let me know. And well, I'll see you guys next week. Looking forward to this. Bye bye.